Anyway, let's talk about A Song of Ice and Fire, Game
Yes.
of Thrones. We read 2 chapters
Two very
for this
good
week.
chapters.
Okay, let's get it started then. We read Catelyn 7,
Yep.
which is the one where Bronn and Ser Vardis Egan fight for Tyrion's life. What struck you about this one?
And Bronn wins.
Bronn wins all over the place.
I don't know. I feel like Catelyn is starting to kind of, I don't want to say like unravel the mystery of Jon Arryn, this big MacGuffin that we have, but his name did come up a couple of times that she was wondering which of the Lannisters killed him and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
I don't know. What really stuck out to me in this chapter, I think, is a continuation of the last chapter that we read where Tyrion was kind of figuring things out on the fly, but then fell into this lucky trap where Lysa wanted him dead so bad that she would do it at any means necessary, which ended up being the thing that saved him because Bronn, kicked ass in this here. So
Lysa underestimated... Yeah, I guess so. Underestimated the extent to which Tyrion could actually pull this off.
Underestimated, and I also think that she... I guess the analogy could be she danced before she crossed the goal line. She was kind of celebrating Tyrion being able to kill Tyrion and do something that Catelyn couldn't do because remember, we've got this sibling rivalry kind of going on here. And then it didn't work out. So poor Lysa, but that doesn't really surprise me. I did like that this chapter was from the point of view of Catelyn watching all of this happen and not Tyrion.
That was interesting.
So, because I could easily have seen this be Tyrion kind of, the literary dramatics of it, I could see it in Tyrion trying to watch Bronn fight for his life and hearing what he was thinking. But I did like this coming from Catelyn and her perspective and kind of watching everything unfold and how it affects her and how it affects the things moving forward. So
it could be more like dispassionate because if it was in Tyrion's head, maybe he would be like more invested in Bronn winning, obviously.
Yeah.
So it would be a different kind of fight. And we chose this. We can get a little more of an unbiased view.
And she also came to the conclusion too that like Tyrion is more valuable to her alive. So like
he absolutely is.
She doesn't need him dead. So she did kind of have a dog in the fight a little bit. Even because going back and forth.
He's her prisoner.
Yeah.
She wants. I guess she would be very conflicted, wouldn't she? Because like if Bronn wins, Tyrion goes free. She doesn't want that.
Yeah.
If Bronn loses, Tyrion dies. She doesn't want that. So she's doing if you don't. By the way, really quick, Kenny says that you look younger without the glasses.
That's what everybody says.
It's true.
I was in Marshall's the other day.
Let's be honest. You look pretty young with the glasses.
I know. When I had my glasses on, I was in Marshall's the other day. I was trying something on. And they give you the pitch to kind of get a credit card, a store credit card, or whatever like that. And the lady stopped in the middle of it. And she said, "How old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 25." And she's like, "Oh, good. You look like you're 17." So I was sure. I wanted to make sure you could open a credit card. I was like,
"You're going to get carded until you're like in your mid-30s."
Well, it's a blessing and a curse.
It's a blessing. Believe me, the older you get, the more blessing it is. Anyway, the best thing I like about this chapter is kind of the way Martin, again, flips the script on us in a way. Because the whole reason Lysa didn't expect any pushback, or she expected Ser Vardis, her chosen champion, to win, is because people on her level, people who are rich and royal and kind of privileged, they don't consider people like Bronn to be an entity at all.
No.
Like, it doesn't enter into their head that someone who doesn't wear fancy armor and isn't, a landed knight who has training and comes from a good family is ever going to win. And that's something that's, I think, interesting because by the end of it, like 5 books later, no one will be thinking that because we're gonna plunge into war. It's gonna get nasty. But in the first book and in this chapter, we're still kind of in like this like area in Westeros where people are like a little restless. Like it's been more or less peaceful. People want a fight almost, and people like Lysa have been able to forget that when you really cross sword to sword, things get ugly and violent and brutal and nasty really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like there's a bit here where one of the lords is like, let's cut Tyrion's heads off and send him to Jaime. Now, like 3 books down the line, when everyone's fighting everyone and a lot of people have died, like you're not going to have that braggadocious attitude. But here, when everyone's just like, when it's in a peacetime context and they can afford to like, strut around and act tough, they'll do that.
Yeah.
And this is the calm before the storm, even though it's not terribly calm at all.
Yeah.
And the other way they flip the script is that, again, Bronn doesn't do what you're supposed to do in this fight. This is a trial by combat. It's a courtly battle where two people get in their mail and their swords and their helmets and whatever, and they fight like gentlemen. It's kind of like...
It's like a duel.
Like duel. It literally is a duel, only someone actually dies at the end.
Yeah. Well, and Alexander Hamilton died after a duel, so...
Do you know, too, like, I didn't realize I saw the play, like, he died... That's not like the only duel he fought in his life.
No, but it's a common thing. Barry Lyndon. There you go.
Barry Lyndon. So. And then Alexander Hamilton's son died in a duel, too. Against Aaron Burr, someone who knew him.
Trial by combat back in the day.
Trial by combat. It's about it because honor is mixed up in it. Like, you're not supposed to do what Bronn does, which is fight to win, which is dress down, move around a lot, like push a statue onto the dude, like using the set dressing to your advantage. And I think he does a good job of showing how doing it the right way, getting in all this armor. Like he mentions how Ser Vardis Egen wears this big, thick helmet where he can't see out the sides of it because it's so thick and intense, but he can only like see right forward. Puts him at a disadvantage because he can't see where Bronn's coming from.
Yeah.
And there's even one point, Robin Arryn says, they're not fighting good, mother. I want them to fight because Bronn is not fighting for show. He's fighting to win. And he wins.
Yeah.
So the message is you're not supposed to play the game the way they want you to play it. Find another way to play it, and that's how you're going to actually beat it.
What a theme for a Game of Thrones. Don't play the game the way you're supposed to. That is something that comes up more and more.
Hashtag irony. Oh, it totally is.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we know because we watch the show that Ned Stark gets killed. Because, and again, we've said this again and again, but it bears repeating. He's the honorable, straightforward one who does the right thing. He plays the game the way it's supposed to be played, and he does. So don't play it the right way is a theme that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Even Lysa a bit isn't above this. So when Tyrion wins, right, he's free, but it doesn't mean he's going to live. No. He still has to cross through the mountains where they came up.
The fine print.
Those chapters ago, where they were attacked by those ragged mountain clans. And she's like, yeah, you're free to walk through all that. I'm not going to give you an escort. See if you live through that, Jagweed. So she tries that. So everyone's trying to play the game their own way. And people like Tyrion are pretty smart. They can get through it. People like Lysa are dumb. They're going to mess up. But I don't have a conclusion to that sentence. What are your thoughts?
No, the flipping of the script is something that's kind of come up with different chapters. You know, like we said, it's the very existence of Ned's character is the punchline is the script is going to get flipped on him. So
that's the punchline. Good call.
So I do enjoy when we see it because that's the big picture flip. These little things where it's like this is a thing that more than one person is thinking about. And if you look at the characters that are kind of playing outside of the rules, you know, Littlefinger, Bronn, Tyrion to an extent, Jaime and Cersei for sure. Those are the characters that rise up and then they become more prominent later in the series. I'm assuming in the books as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's kind of like this whole book so far, I've thought of it as like setting up the rest of the story, even though we're in the story. But this is kind of, he's taking all of these concepts like you have to play the game fair, there's rules here, and tearing them down so that later on it's like there are no rules here. So when the White Walkers show up, when Jon Snow and all this kind of stuff, the dragons, there's no rules. So it kind of heightens the stakes. And I like that that's the way that we're approaching. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but I do like that this is seeing it play out. Yeah, the slow burn of it is really kind of paying off already.
Yes, its civilization is up, and it's like we're starting to rock back and forth, and we're going to get to the point where it's just like, and like those two.
Even Robert Baratheon doesn't play the game the way it's supposed to be played, but he still does it within the rules. Like he doesn't go outside. Like we saw all these conversations he's had with Ned. There's been opportunities for him to do quote unquote the right thing, which is actually outside of the rules, and he doesn't do it. Either because he doesn't want to, because he's lazy, or he doesn't want to because that's not the way that things are done. And slowly, and this is true in society too, you see people like that,
he's gotten complacent,
for lack of a better term, get killed off. So they're no longer in prominent positions of power because they don't adapt. And this is characters adapting in real time, literally in real time in a fight, a trial by combat. So I kind of liked it the way that was kind of laid out.
Yeah, I do too. And also fight choreography, always fun.
Yeah.
Before we move on, really quick, some vocabulary I want to get through because these words recur. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know
I love
them.
the vocabulary.
You know what's fun is that like I've read this book before, but I didn't really slow down and like look at this until I like have to think about it, talk about it. Okay, balustrade. It's a railing with supported by ornamental columns.
Okay.
Catelyn's leaning on them a lot in this chapter. Okay, coif, I think it's coif, is like a hood of mail. I'm sure you've seen them in like medieval movies. It's like a little like a little like kind of dangly hood made of iron to like, it's like a little thin skin for your head. And lobstered metal. He mentioned this a lot, like armored made of lobstered steel. Okay, so this is like, I think we have a picture if we kept it.
No picture.
No? Okay. Well, lobstered mail or lobstered steel is kind of like plates of steel that are kind of put
like a lobster
on top of, like a lobster shell, on top of one another, and like they overlap. So you have the protection in your arm, but you can still like move. It allows a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
So keep those terms in mind. I can use balustrade in my daily life, I think. All right, moving on to John 5. Only John 5. Surprised you it's been that little?
Yeah, but it does really establish the isolationist approach that he's taking it here, because he's out there, he's north, he's on the wall,
he's in another
away
plot
from
entirely.
Everything. Yeah, so we've got, and it's kind of, that's the way that we've had these conversations when we were talking about the last season of the show, about how he's up there at the wall and all this stuff is happening. We have all the politics, Cersei blowing up the Septa Baylor, whatever. And all this stuff, all the politics that are happening, when really none of it matters because the White Walkers are coming. That's, to me, I'm getting that nihilistic feel here, where it's like there's really nothing up here. There's nothing. Everything else that's happening, all the drama with Ned and the trial by combats doesn't mean anything, because up here, this is where everything's, the bleep is going to hit the fan. So,
but it could be like it could be by design, because I mean, to me, I think that the stuff in the middle with King's Landing and Cersei and Bronn fighting and for Tyrion's life is more interesting than stuff on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the point. Yeah. Like, it's not interesting, but you better pay attention to it or it's going to kill you all. So anyway, kind of an in-between chapter. Interesting, this chapter is, I think, one of the first we've come to so far that just was straight up, like, nothing of this is in the show. I think they graduated, and Alistair Thorne gave them the speech about how you're all stupid and you're bad at your jobs and you're going to get killed out there. But that's about it.
That's what I was told at my high school graduation, too.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Your high school sounds like it's in dire need of an audit.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't been there for a while. It served me well, though.
All right, well, let that simmer. The bulk of this chapter, though, is kind of John making a personal decision. So he rides out after he graduates from, I don't know, Marine cadet training. And as always, I just think about Full Metal Jacket, because Alistair Thorne, I'm sorry, he was calling them like, you're all useless and you're going to die like flies. I just flash back to him Arlie Emery calling them scumbags and maggots, and just they're worthless. But John rides out to the King's Road and kind of has a moment where he's like, do I really want to do this, join the Night's Watch, or should I just go? So that the King's Road filled Jon Snow with a vast longing. Winterfell is down that road, and beyond it, River Run and King's Landing and the Eyrie and so many other places. All the places that John would never see. The world was down that road, and he was here. What decision does he make, and why does he make it?
Well, he stayed.
He does, yeah. That's a decision. He
Spoilers
stays.
for everybody who hasn't read or seen the show. I was glad. I knew that he was going to stay.
Of course.
And I had a little thing when I was thinking about it, like, what would happen if he did go? And I don't think that his story would be nearly as interesting if he had gone and become, like we were saying, a part of all of this.
I mean, he's our anchor up for everything that happens at the wall.
Yeah, and he's much more interesting, isolated from the story, creating his own thing, which is, he's the bastard son. He has to do that. That's kind of his thing in life.
Which I think is why he doesn't go, because he's like, I'm a bastard.
Yeah.
There's nothing really for me back there. Like, Catelyn hates me. Even if, I mean, I have brothers, but I'm their bastard brother. So I have an actual family here.
But that's why I liked it, because that was him kind of identifying his purpose in a way. He felt like he had a family, even though, Ned was kind of always nicer to him than everybody else was. He does feel very at home here, which is, again, why I like that it's just so dark and desolate, and this abandoned place because he's the abandoned bastard child.
He's a gloomy kind of guy. Kind of fits.
The emo Jon Snow, because he is a teenager. So
he's a teenager. He's like 15 or something.
Yeah, so his decision to stay makes it a far more interesting story. Because I did consider, what if he would have left and become kind of part of this pomp and circumstance that we have with all of the flash and flare, and I just didn't really. I don't think it serves it much better that he's here and is that driving force up
completely.
north.
I mean, he has to be here, but it's an important moment for him where he decides, I'm committing to this.
Yep, his purpose.
And committing to the Night's Watch means committing to his Night's Watch brothers, means committing to Sam, the least of the Night's Watch brothers.
Sam.
Oh, little Sam. I mean, kind of the most of this chapter is Jon convincing Maester Aemon to graduate Sam, because Sam, unsurprisingly, did not graduate with the rest of them because he is terrible at what he does and cannot fight.
Yeah.
And Jon gives this kind of pretty elaborate speech about how, a Maester's chain needs different metals and Night's Watch needs different kind of people, and Sam's a different kind of person. He can read and do sums and help you, Maester, in your library. It struck me as like really advanced for a 15-year-old. It's like a very well put together metaphor. But I don't know. Jon's a mopey, introspective kind of guy. Maybe he thought about that.
He really needed to sell Sam graduating, though. So
he did.
I think he had thought about it for a while. It was,
a
convincing argument.
Yeah, it did. It seemed to convince the guy. Interestingly, and we don't really get this in the book in the show that much, but so he's suggesting that Sam replace another dude named Chet, who is currently the Maester's assistant. Yeah, the names in this book are like either. Generally, I think that they're pretty good at being like fantasy-ish, but not too fantasy-ish.
Chet.
Like Cersei is not a name you know someone named Cersei, but it's still like not so out there that you can't accept it.
Yeah.
Like Chet might be a little too normal.
Chet is like, I feel like he should have his collar popped every single time he's coming out. Like Chet's a very.
He is clearly a dick. He's like,
it's true.
You can't see the Maester. He's asleep. Go away.
Chet.
Yeah. But anyway, so he basically like have Sam replace Chet. Chet can't even read. Chet's stupid. And Chet won't forget that because as you'll see, like nothing is ever forgotten in these books. That's why these two books are this big, and like nothing happens in these two books.
It's not a very good sales pitch for me to want to read them.
I mean, you have to read them.
That's true.
Sorry. Anyway, that happens, and then I think that's about it.
Yeah, it was very self-contained.
Yeah, it was a nice little quick kind of characterific chapter. Any other closing thoughts about this or the other one?
I mean, with this one, it was more or less the bonding of Sam and Jon, which you know is going to happen. But I feel like it happened slower on the show, and we didn't really. It was kind of a more of an instant thing where Jon was like, "I feel bad for this guy. I want to pick him up," and you kind of had to read Kit Harington's facial cues to see, "Oh, I'm feeling bad for this guy." Whereas here, I did like kind of getting in his head and feeling all of the things that he feels about Sam, because it is an important friendship, and for a guy who we just established didn't go back home because he doesn't feel like he has a home. Having Sam there and knowing how he feels about Sam, I think really drove home the emotional point of it.
I think you're right. I think this chapter is all about, like, when he's at the crossroads, he's making the decision, do I go to Winterfell or do I go back to the Night's Watch? It's that, like, he has actual brothers, but they'll never be truly his brothers because he's a bastard. But he has effective brothers who are contractually obligated by the law of the realm to be his brothers at Castle Black. So he's sticking with the new family he's found, and that includes the least among them, and in many ways, Sam, for all his gifts, is certainly the least among fighters, if not
least physically equipped,
if not scholars.
Yeah.
But Jon understands his value. Jon's he's not a great fighter, but he can read and stuff, so use him.
Leadership qualities.
Yeah, and I mean, as we see, Sam benefits from that. Sam will grow. Sam will benefit from Jon's generosity and faith. Anyway, thank you, Josh. This has been a delight. Diana, by the way, asked, is the word coiffer the one you were giving the definition to, or a different one? The word was coif, C-O-I-F. That's the way it was spelled in the book. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but that's what was said.
C-O-I-F.
Metalhood. I'm not sure what a coiffer is. We'll take a vocabulary journey with this series, I'm sure. There's plenty of funky words in here. Anyway, next week I think we should read the next Tyrion chapter and the next Eddard chapter. About 20 pages altogether.
All right.
Next Wednesday, we're back for another episode of Take the Black Live. Till then, you can download the audio version on iTunes and Google Play, and we will see you next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here on the Winners Coming Facebook page. Thanks a lot for watching.